of our body system that has a certain function, a certain job it has to do. And that job is to take food molecules, complex food molecules, right, the stuff that you actually eat, and break it down into some form that's actually usable, some form that actually can get into your bloodstream. You know, when you ate a Pop-Tart this morning for breakfast, okay, little chunks of Pop-Tart do not float through your blood to go to your cells so they can have energy. That's not the way it works. Okay, that Pop-Tart is going to be digested first in your digestive tract, in your stomach and in your small intestine, so that those complex molecules of sugar, starches, fats, and proteins can be broken up into small, tiny little molecules that can go through the wall of your intestine into your bloodstream to be distributed throughout your body. Okay, so the function of the digestive system is to take that stuff from Pop-Tarts to glucose and amino acids in very, very simple, very small molecules. All right, and this begins actually in the mouth. The mouth is a digestive organ, and there's two types of digestion that happen: mechanical and chemical digestion. Can anyone guess what mechanical digestion means? Hannah?
You're chewing?
Yeah, chewing, just physically breaking up your food into smaller pieces. Okay? Breaking down food into smaller pieces is mechanical. You know, as you chew, you're smashing up the food, turning it into small molecules which are easier to digest than large chunks of food.
Is that why sometimes
You know,
it goes down the wrong pipe?
no, that's something different. That's why
Is it true that you have two clips?
you have two tubes going from your mouth into your body. One carries food, and the other carries air. One is called the trachea. That's the one that carries air. The other is called your esophagus, which carries food. They lead to different organs. They have different openings at the back of your throat. But if you get food or water into your trachea, which is meant for air, that's what choking is. Okay?
If food gets into like your lungs or whatever, if like there's two, and you don't like choke and die from it, but like since your lungs like fill up with food and then you
No, I mean you don't get a lot.
I mean, hopefully you know how to eat your food to the point where it can actually...
Yeah, I mean you get small chunks and immediately you start coughing. You can't get a lot of food into your lungs.
But I mean, if
Coughing
over
is a
time
reflux.
you keep getting
No.
like small,
It breaks down eventually.
It does.
This-
Because water breaks
All right, so that's mechanical digestion. Chemical digestion, however, is actually changing the food into other molecules, taking it from big food particles into smaller, simpler molecules. And this actually starts in your mouth with saliva. Saliva, spit, is not just water. It's produced in salivary glands that are around your mouth. And it actually has digestive enzymes in it. One of which is called salivary amylase, is an enzyme that's in your saliva. It is responsible for breaking down starch into its simpler components, sugars. If you take, for example, a piece of bread or a saltine cracker, some high starch food, and you start chewing it up, and you keep it in your mouth for a long time, let it get all soggy and spit soaked, it eventually
It's disgusting. That
will
is
start
gross.
to taste kind of sweet because the starches from that cracker are being converted into sugars by enzymes in your saliva. You could actually do an experiment. Sometimes they do this in 10th grade, is you take a cracker, you mix it with saliva, and you test it, and at first it doesn't have any sugar in it. But if you test it a while later after it's combined with the saliva and mixed around and you test it, it does have sugar.
Oh, I thought you meant like eating it. That is beyond disgusting.
Yeah,
it's
Daniel?
Like, it's your own saliva. Wait,
Your own saliva.
Are they eating it after they?
No,
drink
they
it
put it in a
saliva?
test tube with saliva.
Yum.
They don't actually eat
No.
it though.
And so these enzymes in your saliva, as well as in other parts of the digestive system, they break down those foods into smaller components. You can see here in our mouth, up in sort of your cheek area underneath your jaw, that's where these salivary glands are that produce saliva. They squirt it in your mouth, Have you ever like maybe been reading a book and you yawn and then you spray it with like a thin like droplets of saliva?
I do that all the time.
Yeah,
and I
your
always
salivary glands release saliva in a little spray. Normally, your mouth is closed and it just sort of sprays inside your mouth. And if your mouth happens to be open when they're sending out their saliva, then
It happens way too
sprays
often
outside
with
your
me.
mouth. All right.
way too often.
So we start in the mouth, where saliva in your teeth start digesting your food, and then your mouth, the back of your mouth, leads to the esophagus. Hannah, do you have a question?
Oh, it's like one of them is right under your tongue, right?
Yes.
If you press on it, it kind of squirts out.
And so your esophagus is a muscular tube that goes down your throat, into your chest, attaches to your stomach. This is the esophagus. This is like all of the digestive system. So this is the esophagus here, goes behind the liver and connects to the stomach. The esophagus basically is just a tube, a muscular tube that connects your mouth to your stomach. It's about 25 centimeters long or so, goes down through your throat and into your stomach. And it actually, food doesn't just drop through your esophagus. It doesn't get into your stomach by gravity or plunks down. Your esophagus works because it has these rings of muscle. And as you swallow food, one muscle contracts and then the next one and the next one and the next one, and it kind of squeezes that food down into your stomach. It's kind of like taking a tube of toothpaste and squeezing it from the bottom and squeezing the toothpaste out. That's what your esophagus is. Squeezes that food into your stomach.
Yep.
So it's called peristalsis. You could drink, for example, a glass of water while standing on your head. The water will still, because of the squeezing of the esophagus muscles, will still be squeezed into your stomach. Okay? And, for example, if a person vomits, that peristalsis is happening in the opposite direction from the bottom up. And that's
So somebody,
Don't you get dehydrated?
you could, because you're losing a lot of water along with the contents of your stomach.
Just delicious.
is it rude to not squeeze out toothpaste from the bottom?
Well, then you just leave a whole bunch in the bottom. All right, so then we lead into the stomach. The stomach is a sort of muscular pouch that's filled with enzymes and acid that breaks down our food. A lot of the chemical digestion of the foods you eat takes place in the stomach. And basically that food turns from, recognizable chunks of what you swallowed into unrecognizable mush that we call chyme. So that happens because of the work of these digestive enzymes and acids that are in your stomach. And, you probably have a sense of this. If you ever got sick and had the flu or something, if you eat and then soon after you get sick and vomit, then the food is still maybe recognizable, still large chunks. If it's been, 6 or 7 hours since you ate, it's basically just a liquidy slop because that food has been digested. Also, this stomach acid is very strong. Our stomach has a lining that helps protect it from its own acid, because this acid could eat away at the lining of the stomach. When a person does have damage to their stomach because of this acid, that's what an ulcer is. It's when the lining is damaged and that stomach acid starts to irritate or damage the tissue within the stomach. Also, if a person gets heartburn or acid reflux, is when at the top of the stomach, here, there's a valve that closes to keep what's in your stomach and prevent it from going to the esophagus. But if it doesn't close properly, if some stomach acid creeps up into your esophagus, it causes a burning and it hurts. And so you can take an antacid, like Tums that you chew up, it basically counteracts the acid that's in your esophagus, making you feel better. But over the long term, if that happens day after day all the time, that acid can eventually damage the esophagus. And so it's a more serious problem, and a person may have to take a stomach acid reducer. CJ, shh. Yeah?
Is it true that gum takes 7 years to digest?
No. Olivia?
Is that what heartburn is?
Yeah, that's what heartburn is. That stomach acid creeping up into the esophagus.
Well, how long would it take? Because everyone says it
I don't
takes-
know. I'm not sure the exact number, but not 7 years. So this is the stomach. It's just this muscular pouch, and once you eat food, it's constantly churning it, moving it around, mixing it with the acids until it's digested enough that can pass into the next organ along the way. But in the stomach and in the small intestine, various enzymes are added to help to digest the food. Okay? And so some of those are the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. They produce these enzymes. But let's talk about the small intestine first. Small intestine is a winding tube. It's about 25 feet long. It fits inside of us because it's all sort of coiled up into your abdomen. And the food makes its way along this path of the small intestine. And along the way, the food is digested further, but also absorbed into the blood. These small intestines have many blood vessels around them that can take in these nutrients once they're properly digested. So once that starch is turned into glucose, it can be absorbed into the bloodstream from the small intestine. So the small intestine is where we absorb all those nutrients. So if we look at some of these organs, sorry.
Yeah. Is that how they do it in surgery? Here's your heart and your lungs.
So if I remove some of these organs, now you can see the, oh, sorry.
All of those organs.
So we're, okay, so here we go.
Mr. Duraj, find the dead body.
So we have here the
Just rip his head apart too. While you're
I believe it's a hurt.
How do you tell what?
So if we see the mouth leads down here into the esophagus. The esophagus is back here behind the trachea, the windpipe. Goes down here into the stomach, which I hold in my hand. Okay, stomach fits in here after the other organs are in there. Okay, they attach to the small intestine. All of this is all small intestine, all wound around 25 feet worth. So the food has a long journey to travel before it's through that small intestine. Okay, and that's where most of the digestion happens, and it's where the nutrients are absorbed.
put her back together.
And then get your intestines back. Then let's do this. Now over here,
Slowly but surely.
okay, this is the liver. The liver is an organ that does several things. Yeah, it's brownish in color.
No.
You ever have liver, eat liver? Parents ever make liver at home?
No. I would murder
Does it actually get stuck to your liver and make it bad?
No, liver is common food. It's calf's liver. It's from cows.
Oh,
It tastes really bad, I think. I ate it twice when I was a kid, and both times I gagged on it. Not my favorite food. But the liver is also a digestive organ. It produces an enzyme called bile. And bile is an enzyme that can break down fat. So when you eat a meal that has fat in it, in order to digest that fat, bile is necessary. So the liver produces bile, but then it sends it into a little storage area. A little green sort of sac that holds the bile until it's ready to be released. That is called the gallbladder. Okay? So the liver is here, this large organ.
We have poison in our blood?
If poison that is ingested, for example, the liver breaks down alcohol. When a person drinks alcohol, it's their liver that breaks down that alcohol, and that's why. Okay. And breaks down that alcohol, so it's no longer having an effect on them. It's also why if a person is an alcoholic, over time they damage their liver. They can get a disease called cirrhosis of the liver, where basically the liver is breaking down and no longer functioning,
I read,
and it can be fatal.
Mr. Duras, I read an article somewhere that it said if someone drinks a beer like once in a while, it can actually be good for them?
Oh, really? I don't know. I mean, people said that too, especially like about red wine and stuff, but there's certain chemicals in, I've heard more specifically about wine, that are beneficial.
When like cartoon characters puke up that green thick stuff, is that what bile looks like?
That is somewhat bile and stomach acid as well. Like if you've gotten sick, like when I had appendicitis, for example, I threw up 38 times in a day. And if you ever have a flu or something, when that happens, eventually, after twice or 3 times, basically everything from your stomach's gone. All the contents of your stomach that you ate are gone. All the water's gone. And then when you continue to get sick, basically you throw up stomach acid and enzymes and bile, which is basically what comes out.
Green?
Yeah, it's like green, tastes really, really bad.
Thank God I haven't gone through that yet.
Alright, anyway, so the liver makes the bile, but then sends it to be stored in the gallbladder. The gallbladder will release this bile when it's needed. Sends it into the small intestine through a tube called the bile duct.
What's SI?
Small intestine. So the gallbladder sends it into the small intestine through this bile duct.
We're gonna just send them. That lady is never getting back together.
What about the stomach?
That's the stomach.
Never. Can I do it?
No.
CJ, how do you know if it's a lady or not? You just said
Yes,
it.
you do.
He said it was.
You just said
Alright. Well, I'll have to get her back together.
it.
Alright, the pancreas is another, here's the pancreas back here. The pancreas, as we learned in the endocrine system, produces what?
Insulin.
Insulin. It also produces what we call pancreatic juices. Not something you probably want to drink for breakfast, not that kind of juice, but a liquidy substance of various enzymes that helps with digestion.
When my friend injects herself with insulin, it looks like it doesn't hurt.
Well, I mean, she's probably gotten somewhat used to injecting herself, so yeah.
So not good.
It's not good.
No.
Well, it is good because it's
Well,
helping.
I mean, it's
her
good.
to
It's
stay-
helping her, but
Yeah.
just being used to the fact that you're gonna stab yourself with a plastic needle.
Looks-
They should find a cure. That doesn't mean.
I'm there working on
Give me
it.
your arm.
Just not as simple.
I think her liver is too big.
Oh, there we go. All right.
Oh, there we go.
Got it.
So there's the pancreas. All right. Now, as we talked about back when we talked about diffusion, we mentioned this. The small intestine, also the lungs, have all of these various bumps and folds. They're called villi. Okay, yeah, and each of them is filled with blood vessels. Do you remember what we said? What's the benefit of that? Instead of the small intestine just being like a hollow tube, it's got all these ridges in there, these villi. What's the benefit of that?
It will allow the food to move easier throughout time.
Yeah, it allows for more diffusion of nutrients because that's all, that whole area of the villi is all areas that nutrients can get into your blood. If it were just a smooth tube, there wouldn't be nearly as much surface area. Okay? It increases the surface area drastically. All right, so this food was esophagus, stomach, small intestine, all over here, and then the small intestine turns into the large intestine. Now the large intestine is called large not because it's longer, but because it's wider. Okay, it's much wider. So this is gray. The large intestine in this model is gray. Goes up, across the abdomen, and then down. That's the large intestine.
Doesn't it go down like a
This
soft
is
serve ice cream?
Yeah, this is the large
Oh,
intestine.
yum.
Yeah, that's not.
No,
this
at the bottom.
So the villi are for absorbing nutrients. Now the large intestine is sort of the last section of the intestine of the digestive tract. By the time the chyme gets to the large intestine, basically all of the useful material has been used up. It's been absorbed into the body. So all the glucose and amino acids and things like that have been absorbed into the blood, and so all of the useful stuff is gone. All that's left is basically water and some undigested material that we don't have enzymes to break down. The large intestine reabsorbs the water to conserve it, so that we don't need to drink less. Okay?
What?
It reabsorbs water that's in that. And so the large intestine isn't for digestion, it's basically for just reabsorbing the water. Everything's already broken down by the time it gets to the large intestine. And so what's left is some material that could not be digested by the human digestive tract. Basically waste, solid waste, which is, after all the water is absorbed, forms feces. Feces is another word for poop. And eventually, that feces is eliminated through the end of the large intestine, the colon, and the rectum, and out through the anus.
Good to know.
Yeah. So, if we look at the digestive tract and label the parts, what is this? Here, sitting behind the liver,
Stomach.
stomach. Then, continues into the small intestine all throughout here. After that, it goes into this tube.
Large intestine.
Yep. And out of the body, any waste. Along the way, the glands that are important. What's this huge one?
Liver.
This one back here.
The pancreas.
Yep. And what stores bile? It's back behind the liver.
Gallbladder.
Gallbladder.
Gall.
And that is